and you have to believe in yourself so much because you're going to get knocked down and you're going to get a very small percentage of them, and you have to be able to just move on.
Did you audition for One Life to Live?
I did. And the very interesting part of that was they were looking for quite a while. And the two parents, that would be my parents, are both blonde and blue eyes. And I came along and they were looking for months, and a casting director that had known me from about a year before from something I did just thought of me and said, hey, he doesn't fit physically, but let's give him a shot. And next thing I knew, I was in New York, and I did the full screen test and got the part.
What was your acting career like at that time while you were auditioning?
At the time, it was, I'd done a few small things, a little episode of Baywatch, some horror movies, things like that. Nothing too much of note, but staying busy. A lot of close calls, a lot of very, very close calls on some bigger things like the movie Varsity Blues, the show Felicity. I was kind of in the final run of those. So that taught me a lot in the sense that it kind of gave you hope, I guess, that you knew you were doing something right if you were getting close and you just had to hang in there. And I think that's what's so valuable about just having the auditions for these things and not getting them is it's really the only the metric we have sometimes of how we're doing in the room or how people are responding to our work, and that's why I think it's very different now with the self-tapes. We don't always get that feedback. And so up to that point, I was pursuing acting, and I was very fortunate to, this is how long I've been around, I wrote a handwritten letter to an agent, a top 10 agent, and they gave me a shot. And I was able to make an impression on a couple appointments I had. And then when the soap came along, it wasn't anything about, oh, let's try to be on a soap, or, you're great for daytime or anything like that is what, a lot of people would say it to me later, like, oh, well, how did you get on a soap? How did you become a soap opera actor? How did you pursue daytime? And I always say it was just another audition. But fortunately at that time, and when you don't have a lot of credits, that's what's so great about the soap operas, is they give people a chance, people that don't have those credits. And I guess it was just my part.
I love that you brought that up, close calls. That's something I don't know if we've really touched a lot on for Film Courage, because there's so many actors that you can know personally wherever they are in their career, and you kind of like, they tell you about the audition beforehand and then you find out they didn't get it, and sort of having to pick themselves up again.
Yeah, it's a major part of acting is not getting rewarded with the job from putting a lot of work in emotionally as well. Especially, everybody knows what the job is, and when it's a bigger job, a life-changing type role, and for it to not go your way, it's a lot of grit in being able to get back up. And it's like a small little tragedy in a way, and a small little trauma in your life. Let's say it's something it's very big, and you've been at it for a couple weeks, you've been in the process, gotten further and further, and it doesn't go your way. There's sort of a mourning period I've found of it gets easier by the day, like a breakup or something. But it's a huge part of it, and that's why I think actors are so brave, and you have to believe in yourself so much, because you're going to get knocked down, and you're going to get a very small percentage of them, and you have to be able to just move on.
What was a regular work week like on that show when you were on One Life to Live?
Well, I'll preface it by saying it's changed a lot since then, from what I'm aware of. But back then, we would run a show as the day. So if we had 60 pages in the show, we would just run that show through the sets. We'd only break it down by set. But we would start the morning with what we'd call a dry rehearsal, which was really just us talking out things. We'd be in the lunchroom or whatever. We would bring up some concerns or what have you. We'd discuss the scenes. We'd get our blocking, take a little break, then we'd all go up to the sets, we'd all block for cameras. Then we would take lunch, then we would come back and we'd actually shoot the show and we'd run it. And very rarely is there more than one take at that time. You just ran through the show. And throughout the week, you would sometimes do more than 5 shows and you would make up for those on the end of the day or throughout. But it was pretty packed week sometimes. You could do 7 shows.
Oh, okay. And this is 5 days a week?
Everything really depends on your character and your storyline. Myself, I was very fortunate to be pretty frontline, and I would work almost 5 days a week every week.
And what time are you getting to set?
Well, again, back then everybody would be in around earlier in the morning, around 7:30, 8, and we'd all have these dry rehearsals. And then we were the younger crew back then, so a lot of times we were put at the end of the day. There was a little bit of seniority sometimes with who would shoot first after lunch, but that's all changed now. They call people in as needed when they're needed at the time of the day. It's much different now, which they started to do a little bit the tail end of when I was still on the show.
So it sounds like while you're on a show like that, your life is very routine because you want to make sure you get to bed by a certain time, and you can't really stay out late and be with friends or something.
It's the closest thing to a day job that an actor can ever have. Even think different than stage or Broadway because they're primarily going to work at night, in the evening. Being on a soap, especially if you're working 5 days that week, it's like a 9 to 5, or an 8 to 8 or whatever. But it's really the closest, most consistent work you can have as an actor, and that's why I think why so many people feel they're so valuable and have created such good actors.
What made those years you worked on the show so special?
Well, I think kind of what we touched on is just acting every day. When you pursue acting, all you want to do is work and be able to work. You spend so much time not working on set, And so to just get up and go to work every day as an actor and to continually work on your craft, continually work those muscles was so invaluable. And then when you mix in, you are really an ensemble in a sense. You're working with another 25 people at all times. You're heavier with some characters and others, but you really are this big team. And of course, most people refer to it as, family-like, and it really is. You see these people every day.
How is life different when you act in a soap opera?
Well, I think for one thing, you're playing one character. And so when you have one character for 1 year, 2 years, 25 years, you really get to know that character. And they told me when I started, they said the writers are going to start writing for you, the person, as you start bringing more of yourself into the role and as they get to know you outside of work or what have you. Things you do and things you do well as an actor. They'll start writing more for that. So in that sense, it's different that you're stepping into a role and you're going to be doing it for a long time, at least a year or so, and you're playing that same person.
And the fans know you as that person.
Yeah, so life outside of set and stuff is you're very much known as that character more so than probably other mediums or genres, in the sense that, especially if that's all you've really done, and that's what they view you as, of course, years later.
Right. Would you get? Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I'm sorry. And they also shared with me that they make a point to say the characters' names a lot for people just tuning in, or just catching it a little bit. You watch every scene, you know what character it is. That's why they tend to say their names a lot.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
Fun little fact.
That's interesting. And when people would write letters to you, would they write to you as the character?
Maybe once in a while, but typically they probably gave some advice for the character, but I think most were able to, disassociate and write to you as a fan as an actor, yeah. But there were a couple in there.
What does Will Rappaport mean to you today?
Hmm. I think to me it means sort of a start, a chance to be in showbiz. It was it happened pretty fast for me, comparatively to a lot of things in this business. I was pursuing acting for about a year and a half, and then I was able to do it full time, make a living doing it, and have people watch you every single day. So, in that sense, it really represents just sort of a beginning, and I guess made me realize that I could actually do this for a living.
And so you had been in LA a year and a half? Or no, New York, I'm sorry.
No, I was in LA.
Ah, okay.
I was in LA. I had been out here a little bit, kind of just taking classes and stuff, and then really pursuing acting for about a year and a half when I got that. So in those, at that time, you really kind of question, what am I doing? Is this ever going to happen? Am I throwing my life away? I skipped college. So for that to happen relatively soon, and it wasn't by mistake, I definitely, pursued everything wholeheartedly. It was still like, wow, okay, this is possible. And I think since then, it kind of gives you something as well to look back on and say, wow, well, you can do this, professionally.
And you grew up in?
I grew up in Reno, Nevada.
Okay. And how was life like then, and then coming to Los Angeles?
Well, fortunately, my dad lived in LA. He was just a school teacher, no showbiz connections. Usually when you say that, my dad lived in LA and you came down to LA, it's like, no, he was a school teacher. So he lived in LA, so I spent a lot of time visiting, and that's actually what sparked a lot of my passion and interest in showbiz. We would go visit the studios, and I was fascinated, and we'd go look at old movie spots when I'd come down. So it wasn't a huge move for me compared to most people.
So you knew the area?
I knew the area, but I came 2 weeks after high school, as soon as I could, yeah.
Oh, wow.
Just wanted to get a jump on it.
Wow. And so do you still keep in touch with some of the classmates?
From
Reno, Nevada?
Yeah, I have a couple good friends still, like some of my best friends for sure, yeah, wow. Definitely. And it's crazy, it's been so long now, but yeah, people definitely follow your career and let you know, and take screenshots of the TV or what have you when you're on now, or they see movies, yeah.
What would you tell a young actor who wants to get into soap operas?
I would say treat it to just become the best actor you can. And if a soap opera comes your way, then you're going to be just as prepared for that as any other, genre. It's really just acting, and there's nothing, I think, really specific that you could do. There are some skills it is a fact, you probably need to be someone that can handle a lot of material. But I think that comes with a lot of practice and doing it, But I don't know if there's anything too specific to pinpoint that. I think that would be more a business side of things. If you would, talk to your reps, or you actively pursued like a particular show, and say, this guy is a soap opera guy. That's all he wants to do. But I think just become an actor, and maybe one will come your way.
When you said you wrote to this agent, where did you? Did you see the agent out somewhere?
No, this is old school. I've been here a while. So like you go to Samuel French, and they would have the agent books, and you'd pick one up and it would update it, and I would go home and I would take a notebook, white line paper, and I would write a letter to almost every one of them that was somewhat reasonable, I guess maybe once a month, and mail them out. And I heard back a couple times, and what had happened, this is actually a good story. What had happened was I had a commercial agent, which is a lot easier to get. And for some reason, they were looking for like athletic guys or something for this new show for the WB network at the time. And they put forward some of their commercial people, and they called them in for theatrical auditions. And I went in, and I went far on the show. I'd been studying acting, but it's not like I just hadn't had an agent yet, a proper theatrical agent. And from there, I didn't get it. I didn't screen test, but I went quite far and did well. From there, a couple weeks later, when they couldn't cast the show, those casting directors called the agency that I had sent my handwritten letter to and said, look, we're looking for a young guy, athletic, what have you. Do you have anybody? And he had held my picture on his desk, and he was going to call me after pilot season because it was so crazy. He said, well, I have this guy, you know. They gave very good feedback about, you know, my process, you know, let him know, yeah, sign him. And that's how it happened. So in mailing out, you know, hundreds of those handwritten letters, one just happened to finally hit.
Wow,
Yeah.
that's really cool.
Yeah.
So not even
different than
typing.
email.
Yeah. And, well, maybe something about the handwritten, I don't know.
Yeah.
Personal touch or something.
Yeah.
Yeah. And just lastly, were you ever tempted to go back to Nevada?
Honestly, no. I've never really thought about being in anything but showbiz, and in some aspect, if I could never act again, I would pursue other things in show business, and so I wouldn't see much of a future in that in Nevada. Of course, things have changed now. You don't really have to be present as much as you did, but I would always kind of stay where the action's at.
So even being down here a year and a half or whatever until you booked the soap, you were just like, this is, I'm going to stick this out no matter what.
Honestly, yeah. I especially at that time, I never gave myself a time frame. I don't think that's healthy to do either. I don't think you should say, oh, 3 years and I'm out. Because what if something comes on that in 3 years and 4 days, you know? I think I never gave myself a time frame or a type of success to measure to. I just knew I was committing my life to it. Fortunately, I never got too many years down the line without some success to really test that too much, but I've been tested since, believe me.